Due to mature subject matter, viewer discretion is advised.
Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Just after sunrise, the fireball exploded out of the ocean. Terror and panic rattling a tour boat as flaming rocks showered down.
We could hear the rocks hit the boat and the people yelling.
23 injured, the most serious a broken femur.
We all thought at some point we could die here.
Steve Monahan was aboard the sightseeing expedition off the Big Island when a basketball-sized lava bomb flew through the air, punching a gaping hole through the boat's roof.
We didn't know how big, how strong. Was it going to sink the boat? Was it going to catch it on fire?
With lava from Kilauea gushing for more than 2 months, we've seen its fire and fury firsthand.
You can't compare it to anything I've seen.
Wow. And now, after destroying more than 700 homes, the volcano is creating a new island in the Pacific as rivers of molten lava pour into the ocean. Shane Turpin operates the boat damaged Monday. He took us on a tour in May.
I don't think anybody can really be prepared for what they see at the ocean entry till they're here.
Tonight, tour operators are no longer allowed to get as close to the action. After many have already gotten a view they'll never forget.
The storm came on in a flash, swamping nearly 24 cars on the heavily traveled GW Parkway outside Washington, and caused a leak of a different kind on Capitol Hill as water poured from the ceiling in the Cannon House office building. This nearby metro station looked more like a waterfall during the height of the storm, and the same heavy rain flooded the dugouts at Nationals Park just ahead of the start of the Major League Baseball All-Star Game set for later this evening. The storm hit the entire Northeast hard. Time-lapse video shows it washing over the Manhattan skyline, dumping water on the city and flooding parts of the subway system. This funnel cloud was even spotted off the tip of southern Manhattan. Connecticut saw tornado warnings and heavy rain, while the storm brought flash floods and knocked out power to thousands in Massachusetts on what's been a very hot and sticky day.
Tonight, firefighters scrambling to slow the march of a surging inferno. The deadly Ferguson fire, exploding to more than 12,000 acres over the last few days, now churning through a tinderbox. Forests of dead trees ravaged by drought near Yosemite National Park. The smoke spreading so fast, you can see it from space.
Could see a lot of the flames and smoke last night coming over the mountains, so that was a little scary.
Along the front lines, steep, hazardous terrain. It hasn't burned here since 1927, making conditions treacherous for crews. 36-year-old veteran firefighter Braden Varney, a married father of 2, was killed, his bulldozer rolling over during the operation.
It's pretty devastating for everybody in Mariposa.
The California blaze, one of more than 60 major fires wreaking havoc in the West this summer. And the same blistering heat and bone-dry conditions fueling the fires are now baking the West in a region-wide oven. 3 million under heat advisories and excessive warnings, with highs climbing into the hundreds over the next few days. Poor conditions and punishing heat, pushing an already deadly fire season to disastrous levels.
This time-lapse video captured the massive wall of dust as it barreled through the Phoenix area. The dust storm reduced visibility to 0 during yesterday's evening rush hour and was followed by hail and had more than an inch of rain in parts of Phoenix and Scottsdale. This apartment building lost part of its roof. The weather phenomenon known as a haboob forms during the summer monsoon months, when a wall of thunderstorms push powerful winds over the desert. National Weather Service forecaster Paul Iniguez.
So they present themselves as this big rolling dust cloud as it crosses the desert. It's almost apocalyptic to see. It can look pretty substantial, yeah, to people as it's coming in. So, and it does pose a pretty significant threat to people out there.
While haboobs are not unusual this time of year, Iniguez says this was a significant one.
Frustration pours into the streets of Iraq. Demonstrators say they've had enough. No jobs and limited services have reached a breaking point.
We have wounded people and cannot evacuate. We have 2 injured who are still lying in the streets and 2 others who were taken away.
In the oil-rich city of Basra, like across the country, security forces are on high alert. They've used water cannon and tear gas, blocking protesters from storming the main provincial government building. With growing protests, people have reported an internet shutdown and disconnected telephone lines. Unrest has been simmering over the past week against a backdrop of political instability following May's contested and unresolved election results. Protesters have blocked roads and burned tires. And in the city of Al-Najaf, they stormed the airport and the ruling party's headquarters. Security concerns led 2 major airlines to suspend all flights to that city. The acting government says violence will not be tolerated. Responding to the protests, Iraq's Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi has promised to invest $3 billion in jobs, housing, and services. But the people of Iraq are losing patience with the country's fractured politics.
The government is not totally in control of the situation. There are other parties, the militias of the other parties, which are fighting between each other.
Iraq's government is calling on people to be patient, but many on the streets say their patience is wearing thin.
A symbolic neighborhood in Nicaragua came under siege Tuesday by pro-government forces. The National Police advanced into the city of Masayas Manimbo neighborhood, which in recent months has become a center of opposition to Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega. In mid-April, a wave of anti-government protests started against cuts to the Social Security system. Since then, more than 200 people have been killed by pro-government forces.
Many people here in Uganda's capital, Kampala, aren't happy about having to pay to use the internet's most popular services. So when Bobby Wine, a pop star and MP, led a demonstration against the new social media tax, crowds quickly gathered.
We are opposed to the social media tax because it is a personal attack on the young people of Uganda. Social media is the last platform for us to express ourselves as the young people of Uganda after being oppressed for so long, 32 years. The president is so angry because the young people don't support him and they tell him straight in his face on social media.
Users have to pay about 6 cents a day to be able to access WhatsApp, Facebook and other services. President Yoweri Museveni said the tax will help to reduce gossip. The activists here say it's an indiscriminate tax that hurts the poor most.
A lot of the people that work here in downtown Kampala are among Uganda's least wealthy internet users. Their access to data is kind of hand to mouth. If they have a bit of money, 20 cents, 50 cents, they'll buy some credit. When it runs out, they'll be offline again, maybe for a couple of days. So for those people, social media tax is crippling.
But after just minutes of marching, police came to stop the protest. They said it's unlawful. Demonstrations have been heavily restricted in Uganda since anti-government protests 7 years ago. This time, things were no different. But those who think it is a burden weren't given long to express it. Police arrested protest leaders, but Bobby Wine's supporters managed to drag him away. The Prime Minister since told Parliament that the government will review the controversial taxes. But it's clear that this kind of opposition to them won't be tolerated.
Tonight, a new warning from scientists that ticks, including those that carry Lyme disease, are now spreading into new areas around the country.
Ticks are not just in the Northeast and the Upper Midwest, where we classically think they are. They're in the South, they're in the Far West, and that means that these things are everywhere.
A new study by the Bay Area Lyme Foundation analyzed more than 16,000 ticks sent in from people across the country. Most concerning, the black-legged tick, which transmits Lyme, was identified for the first time in 76 counties in 24 states.
I'd like to bring you an update concerning some plagues and viruses that have popped up in the last few weeks. And I like to bring you these types of reports so that you are aware of what's happening in Bible prophecy, because this is indeed a part of prophecy. So with that said, I'd like to take you to this first report from the Sun, and they are reporting about a deadly parasite worm that's set to invade Europe, and it lays its eggs inside human organs. Around 25 to 30% of humans are currently infected with at least one parasitic worm species. The diseases they cause can be devastating. Worm infections can lead to diverse and chronic conditions such as scarring of the eyes and blindness, swelling and immobility, blockage of digestion, and malnutrition. The virus, dubbed snail fever, currently affects hundreds of millions of people each year, causing thousands of deaths. K2 News in Portland is reporting that measles cases have been confirmed in Portland, with about 500 people possibly exposed. Multnomah County officials say approximately 500 people were exposed to a confirmed case of measles in the Portland area. Of those 500, the Multnomah County Health Department Communicable Disease Services team is monitoring 40 people who were exposed and considered non-immune. People with measles can spread the virus to others before they show symptoms. The virus can also linger in the air for minutes or hours after someone with measles leaves the area. And moving along, the Telegraph is reporting that doctors are warning that a little known but increasingly common sexually transmitted disease is in danger of becoming a superbug, with sexual health clinics lacking the tools to diagnose it properly. Mycoplasma genitalium has similar symptoms to chlamydia, but is more resistant to treatment and can lead to pelvic inflammatory disease in women and ultimately infertility. It goes on further to report around 1 to 2% of men and women are thought to be infected with the disease, although rates in some STD clinics are as high as 38%. It goes on even further to report that potentially up to 3,000 women a year over the next 10 years could become infertile because of MG. This next report comes from Express News, and they are reporting that scientists have found 2 new viruses that could lead to a deadly disease X outbreak. Experts are trying to get ahead of the disease X, an unknown pathogen that could trigger a global pandemic before it wipes out swathes of humanity. The PREDICT project has been looking through the animal kingdom to discover viruses which could one day mutate and evolve to kill all of humanity. This next report comes from Fox News, and they are asking the question, what is Rocky Mountain spotted fever? Signs, symptoms, and treatment for the tick-borne disease. Ticks are known for spreading a variety of different ailments, such as Lyme disease, tularemia, babesiosis, and more. One type of tick, the Lone Star, has even been said to carry an infectious organism that can result in an allergy to red meat. Others can infect humans with an ailment known as Rocky Mountain spotted fever, a potentially fatal disease reported under a category called SFR. More than 11 cases per million people were reported in the United States in 2014, according to the CDC. In July, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services announced the first ever documented death from the virus. It goes on even further to report that while this virus has been reported across the country, it is most common in states such as North Carolina, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Missouri. The CDC reported that these states account for over 60% of cases each year. Certain species of tick are to blame for the disease as well. And speaking of insects, USA Today is reporting in regards to the Keystone virus, another mosquito-borne virus might pose a risk to people, specifically those in Florida. A confirmed human case of Keystone was recently reported in the medical journal Clinical Infectious Diseases. Research author J. Glenn Morris suggested that the Keystone cases could be fairly common in North Florida, but he said this is the first confirmed case, possibly because patients are rarely tested for the virus. The virus was first discovered in the Tampa Bay area in 1964. Since then, animal cases including squirrels, raccoons, and deer have been found from Texas to the Chesapeake Bay. The virus is transmitted from mosquito bites. Symptoms might include a rash, mild fever, and brain inflammation. University of Florida researchers recently said a 16-year-old boy was the first human case of the Keystone virus. The Florida Department of Health stated there was another recorded case of the virus in a young child from Sarasota in 1964. At this time, there's no specific treatment plan for viruses in humans. And again, speaking of insects, the Daily Record is reporting about a swarm of vampire horseflies that have hit the UK and is bringing a threat of a serious infection. The recent heat wave has seen populations of blood-sucking clegs or horseflies reach the Mediterranean levels. The females feed off blood, with the charity warning that bites could result in painful swellings and the possibility of infections which might not be treatable with existing antibiotics. While the majority of small but nonetheless painful insect bites and stings can be treated at home with over-the-counter medication, itchy horsefly bites take longer to heal and can become infected, especially if scratched. Current treatments include steroid creams and, with serious cases, broad-spectrum antibiotics. But with bacteria in our bodies becoming more resistant to antibiotics, it can be difficult to find the right treatment to fight these infections, and in some cases this has resulted in the threat of amputation or death. A professor has stated that it is entirely possible in 2018 that you can die of an insect bite, not just in some hot foreign climate, but here in Britain. This next report comes from the Mirror, and they are reporting about a terrifying new species of wasp with a stinger like a fierce weapon is discovered. A team from a university in Finland found new species living in the Amazon rainforest. A professor who worked on the study stated that the stinger of the new parastoid wasp is not only long, but also very wide in comparison with the size of the species. He said, "I have studied tropical parastoid wasps for a long time, but I have never seen anything like it. The stinger looks like a fierce weapon." All female wasps have a stinger, which is used to either inject venom or lay eggs. The egg is placed either on or inside the host, and as it also works as a stinger. The female wasp can inject venom into the host in order to paralyze it. When I hear about these specific insects, especially this last report from the Mirror in regards to this wasp, it makes me think about what will happen during the Great Tribulation. What am I talking about? Well, for those that are not familiar, during the Great Tribulation, there will be a number of plagues that will occur. And one of those plagues involves an insect, but not just any normal insect. This insect is going to come from the pits of hell. If we go to the book of Revelation, chapter 9, the Bible goes into detail about this particular insect. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of lion, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men for 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel, the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue has his name Apollyon. So these are definitely some ugly demonic creatures, and they're directed only to those that do not have the seal of God. So the unbelieving and the unrepentant will be tortured for 5 months. However, all those who have believed the gospel of salvation through Jesus Christ are sealed with the Holy Spirit until the final day of redemption and inheritance. But those that are not believing and are not sealed by the seal of God will be tormented for 5 months. So why 5 months? Because that is the lifespan of a locust. People will actually seek death, but will not find it. However, this could be an opportunity for those that are unrepentant to seek Jesus during this time and receive salvation, because that is God's ultimate goal, that not one should perish.